Hi everyone, welcome to my review of Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare from 1991. Directed of course by Rachel Talalay, and yes, the sixth film in the franchise, and effectively you could say the final film in the canon, in the actual universe of this series. So very big event here, and yes, here it is on Blu-ray, and once again going through the set behind me, parts 6 and 7 on this particular part here, and yes, it was very interesting once again to go through this, and yes, there will be spoilers in this discussion, so if you haven't seen this film, I simply recommend just kind of preparing yourself though for a really over the top film, very campy and very insane film, and just watch the film maybe. I recommend that. I certainly recommend it. Just give it a go and then come back to this perhaps, and then you can kind of rest assured that you won't get any kind of spoilers given to you. And yes, with that said, as always, here we are, a very we'll at least give it this, unique film in the series, and yes, quite a famous one. This is, yes, also known as well as just simply A Nightmare on Elm Street 6, The Final Nightmare, but it is mainly referred to as Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare, so yeah, it's kind of the first one to actually, in the main title in that sense, not really have A Nightmare on Elm Street in the title, but yeah, it's a very interesting film, indeed famous, but this time around, not for the same reasons that the other films are, and you could say, yeah, we'll say it now, this is a very much very unpopular film. In fact, it is hated in the general sense. The consensus is really that it's a bad film, that it's just not really a nightmare film, not really a film in the series in that sense. Some people don't really regard it as a true film in this franchise, and it's interesting. It's certainly a film. Having said that as well, thinking on it, I don't really know anyone that loves this film. Maybe a couple of people that I've met, and that's nice. Nice to know that there are fans out there, but generally, going throughout my entire life, and I've been a fan of this series from a very young age. But even then, this one, very rarely have I met anyone that actually likes this film, and certainly, they're not big fans of it at all. And it's very interesting because, when I watched this when I was younger, it was certainly an experience, and I had watched all the other entries. I had the DVD set, and there was maybe a bit of a gap between 5 and this, in the time I watched it, because simply I didn't really, as I said in my previous review, I didn't like 5, and I guess it kind of put me off watching 6 for a little bit. That could have just been a month or so. I can't recall, but it certainly wasn't a film that I watched in quick succession like I did the other sequels when I was younger, of course. But of course, many people will be thinking, what does he think of this film? Does he actually like this one? Someone probably already have guessed. This guy, he loves his his campy horror films, or just campy films in general. And in that sense, yes, I'll admit, I do like this film. Yeah, there could be a shock to some. Others, it won't be too much of an ordeal, in that sense. But yes, I do like it. I liked it when I was a kid as well. I didn't like 5 back then, and of course, yes, I put in 6. I left it a little bit, of course, and was surprised, that I actually liked it, and it was kind of more my kind of thing, and just more, bright and kind of light-hearted, of course, and yeah, I just kind of enjoyed essentially the kind of road trip feel it had, and yeah, just enjoyed it. I never loved the film, but I remember watching it a few times, and certainly liking the film, and even people that I knew, people that had watched some of the films in the series, when I was a kid, and I knew people, my friends and stuff, even either they had never seen it, or they just simply didn't like it either, and it's certainly, so in that sense, it's a film that, I didn't really have the chance to kind of really talk about this film. It's just very nice to kind of do it now, of course, and yeah, it's interesting, my brother actually never really got into it either, but on this rewatch, he likes it as well, to an extent, he liked the film, so yeah, it's certainly a film that I guess fans out there are very very few, you could say. There's not too many people that like the film, but I do defend it. You know, it has its shortcomings. It really, really does. It has. There's quite a few things about this that, you know, it's very disappointing to see. But having said that, I do think it's a kind of an okay film. Definitely a film that I have some nice feelings for, and yeah, it's a film that I enjoy. I have a good time with. I had once again a nice experience, and yeah, it's an okay film. It's certainly not for me anyway personally. Again, just my opinion. Of course, there are films I don't like, but this is a film that I do like, and that's just my opinion. I do defend it, but yes. The film is very, very strange, and really watching it again and actually just thinking on it over the night, today as well, just thinking of my experience. There's things while I watch, particularly I refer to the final act of the film. There's stuff in this, kind of backstory perhaps to Freddy, seeing him when he was younger, and actually seeing perhaps interactions and stuff, and seeing what actually happened, what made him, you could say, or just what happened before he became, the Freddy Krueger that we know. This happens in the last kind of act. In particular, you see a lot of stuff here, and yeah. It's a film that, while I was watching it once again, it's kind of like, oh wow, we're actually finally seeing, a lot of the backstory here in particular ways, and it's kind of something I enjoy, to an extent. And when I'm watching it, it's kind of a novelty, in that sense. But then the after effect is, by the actual ending scene, which unfortunately I really do not like. I don't like the way it ends. I don't think the final line is good at all. It just kind of cheapens the effect. But after thinking on it afterwards, it is maybe I kind of wish that would have happened. These things earlier on in the series, when for me, there were just better films. For example, with 3, we had quite a bit of exposition there, and just kind of atmospheric moments, and just this mystery and kind of reveals, but not too much, and it had a control, it had a subtlety, a nuance. Just imagine if if these moments had been occurring in that film perhaps, or the second film, etc. It would have been so much better, and I just wish, as a fan, actually, I wish it would have happened. Something like this would have happened earlier on, because I think this and 5 in particular are certainly not subtle, and they are, they do have their cheap elements, and I think they're nowhere near as good for me. I think after 4, the series definitely declined, and really after 3, there's a massive kind of step down. While I do like 4, and 5 and this, I think there was definitely a step down after that. Original kind of 3, I think there were definitely some noticeable differences, and just definitely step down. I think if this all these reveals had happened, I'm saying in them films, the earlier films, I think it would have been much better, and it really would have been truly satisfying. The problem with this film really, for me, is there's a few issues, but really it kind of takes Freddy, and we know Freddy, certainly after the first film, you could say, as a very comical character. He is of course menacing, and they kind of at times perfected that. For example, in 3, that was perfect. The kind of the perfect blend of kind of outlandish and kind of wacky and funny Freddy, with the kind of menacing and disturbing nature of this character. After all, he is a villain. He is, we know what he does. And he has a striking appearance. He is a menacing villain. Scary character. But in this film, I think it really goes a bit too far, even for my liking. I can go with campy, outlandish, silly films in franchises, or just in general. I can go for this. I can get invested. I can get fully behind this. Even just horror films specifically. I love on occasion, and many occasions I like campy horror films, comedy horrors, of course. Behind me, that's a comedy horror, through and through, American Werewolf in London. And this film though, I do enjoy many of the moments in this. In fact, You know, I loved when I was younger as well, seeing you know, Freddy playing video games, and of course using you know, Spencer as well. You know, in this film, the character of Spencer, kind of controlling him, and it was just kind of this really cool thing to me as a kid. And yeah, once again, you know, it reminded me I do like this to an extent. You know, on the other hand, there's moments where, you know, I laugh, you know, and I kind of just get these kind of, you know, nice moments, you know, when these different things happen. But then right after that, you know, it just kind of goes and goes and goes, and there's a lack of control. That's what I'm saying with a lot of the comedy in this film, and you know, even the video game moments. There's some parts, you know, it's very much an extended sequence. We have many of these moments, and you know, it goes a bit too far. You know, and in the end, I think Freddy, you know, especially in the final act, he isn't really this disturbing character anymore. He is kind of this, you know, kind of mascot in a way. He is this, you know, comic relief character, and very, very little, you know, remains of the kind of scary, disturbing villain that we had. You know, in really all of the other films, there was at least moments in them films where he was scary, where he was affecting, where, you know, he was this menacing character, one that got under your skin. It did for me anyway, and you know, really kind of disturbed, you know, and just nestled into the mind there, and yes, just scared me. Maybe a couple of shots in this film do, but really, the character of Freddy, you know, is kind of not as we remembered him. You know, in the previous films, he is effectively gone, and we have a kind of, unfortunately, kind of a caricature, you know, of Freddy. Having said that, I'm not, you know, really kind of putting the film apart here and bashing on the film at all. You know, having said that, I do enjoy Freddy in this film. It's just not in the same way, perhaps, that I do in the other films. You know, in this one, he is, you know, pretty much 100%, you know, just a funny character who is, you know, the villain, but not really, you know, a villain, and someone that, you know, is just kind of made a mockery of, even when, you know, we do have the kind of, you know, the kind of exposition. We learn, you know, one of our main characters of Maggie is essentially the daughter of Freddy, and of course, all of this stuff happens in the final act, and this is meant to be, you could say, it could have been, it was leading more to an emotional, more serious, you know, kind of tone here, and then the final moments, you know, just kind of diminishes that, and it goes back to the comedy. Very bizarre film, this, but you know, we'll start off at the beginning a bit more as well. The opening scene, of course, we have this character of John Doe. That's all his, you know, that's what he's referred to as, John Doe, and he's kind of set up, you know, in this film as, you know, our protagonist. You know, in the end, he's not. You know, that's really Maggie, who is this, you know, she played by Zane, and she's, of course, this psychologist. She's experiencing the same kind of nightmares that this, you know, John Doe character is, and yeah, essentially, she kind of, well, he gets killed off, and then, you know, she becomes, as we know, the kind of central protagonist. You know, someone who does actually have, yes, once again, a connection to Freddy, like they do in a lot of the films. But you know, you'd think, you know, at least I thought, really, this film, you know, it's kind of strange to see, you know, the tone of this. At times, you know, it could have really stuck to the kind of a bit more of a serious tone, you know, more of a taking things a little bit more seriously, just a little bit, you know, and that's all I was maybe expecting, you know, just reminding me of what actually happens in this film, and in a sense, it doesn't really follow through in that final act with the emotion, you know, just the kind of perhaps the tragedy of this, you know, effectively, you know, the daughter of Freddy having to essentially defeat him, but you know, in the end, it's kind of brushed off, you know, as a one-liner, and we actually have, you know, this kind of yes, this actual moment. And you know, the laughing there, and leading into very you know, kind of wacky credits as well. You know, of course, Iggy Pop as well performing the final song, which I like. You know, the song, and I love Iggy Pop. But you know, I think again, there's some things in this that are kind of very, very bizarre to see. The blend of elements and just the execution. You know, I enjoy this film. I like this film, but you know, it's kind of a, you know, up and down film experience, and I think the first half for me, it's very nice to see the locations. It's a warm film. I was invested to an extent, in these characters, of course. Has a nice, kind of mix here, for characters, and just, ones that are kind of, again, they have this trauma, perhaps they're troubled, and, there's something that is relatable in that sense. You can get behind these characters. John Doe as well, he comes from this, this town essentially of Springwood, where, of course, this is set many years after, the previous film. It's not, for example, a year after, like a lot of the films were, of the previous entry. But it's very interesting to see, because most of the teenagers or kids have been killed off in this location, and he is essentially the final, or one of the final remaining kind of teenagers, and essentially, yes, it's kind of dream sequence. We see, of course, as well, the Wizard of Oz, kind of nod there, and Freddy is essentially the Wicked Witch, and he is, riding the kind of broomstick there, and he says the lines, and yes, just hilarious, really, very bizarre, of course, but yes, then we have essentially the character of John Doe stepping into the kind of stepping out of effectively Springwood, and then of course he meets these other characters, where teenagers are not killed, and yeah, it goes from there. He stumbles into this this clinic, this kind of place where these other characters are, and it goes from there, and essentially a lot of this first half is these some of these characters again banding together. It has this warmth, it has this kind of charm and humanity of these characters banding together, just kind of searching and just traveling, and it's a nice kind of you could say, yes, kind of road trip-esque, first half. But yes, Lezlie Deane plays Tracy, and you have Breckin Meyer as well, playing Spencer. Of course, you have Carlos as well, and yes, these characters, for example, they are kind of, in some ways enjoyable to see. It's kind of warm. It has, it has a heart. This film, in places. I think this is not a complete, write-off. I don't feel. I do defend this film. I do like these characters to an extent. Maggie is maybe not my favourite character or anything like that, but I think it's at least enjoyable to see, in a surface level way, and just it's kind of entertaining seeing them, of course, driving around, and kind of course. Again, you have this kind of idea of looping, them going back and going around in circles, and of course it turns to night, at one point. So they've been doing this, the whole time. Again, a bit weird, as well, how they kind of Maggie, lets these guys, these individuals, of course, go off on their own as well. And it's kind of, a lot of this I don't feel, is entirely, fully realised. I don't feel, in fact, especially the whole way in which we have John Doe, kind of, John is set up. We have this kind of idea that he could be the son of Freddy, and it's kind of interesting because he is, the introductory character. He's the one who is introduced at first. Essentially we do feel that he is the protagonist, that he's killed off halfway through, and completely just written off, and then we have Maggie coming as our main protagonist. So it's very strange, and that would have worked. It's fun that they do that, but I think it's just kind of strange how we have these moments. The structure of this film is very strange, and we have these different twists and turns, and I think, and these reveals, and it's kind of, it feels a bit patchy. It feels a bit messy at times, and maybe not fully realised for my liking. But having said that, I think it's interesting to see the backstory. I'm entertained and compelled by some of this. In particular with Freddy, just to see that on the screen, and to see some moments early on and see what he was like and stuff. It's at least interesting, following this character throughout the entire series, and then for it to finally happen, as I have said, I wish it did happen earlier on, or just if it had been given more of a subtlety, and just again more of a kind of an appreciation for the roots of the character, and the series. There is a kind of a cheapness to it a little bit. I think it certainly could have been better. The reveals, in the final act, it got to a point where I kind of felt this kind of feeling where maybe it went a bit too far in places. And it was very much reveal after reveal, and it really dedicated pretty much the entire final act to this, and then of course defeating Freddy. And yeah, I did enjoy though seeing some of the fights, towards the end of the film. And once again, it has creative moments. This film, it has. Yeah, the moment, of course, when Carlos, the kind of hearing aid thing there, and it's yes, the way in which Freddy, for example, is dropping nails, and all this kind of stuff. This film is full of shenanigans. The things that go down here are very, very out there. It kind of feels. This is a very psychedelic film. This very strange, very offbeat, you could say, and I like some of the visuals to this. For example, when Spencer is drawn in. As well, through the TV there, of course. But yeah, it's interesting to see the visuals to this film. Having said that, I think the other films in the franchise up until this, I feel personally they were better directed, and it's just I think I found the visuals to those films more impressive and just more more engaging to me. But I do praise at least again the direction here. It's not bad. I think it's pretty fine. It has a nice flow at first, but while I think the second half is more, engaging in the sense of there's more things happening, to characters that we know, of course, we've been invested in throughout the series. I think the first half is more consistent. It's more, it's more enjoyable overall. And I think it's nice to see Yaphet Kotto in this though as Doc. I think he is in the final act quite a bit, and he helps him kind of defeat Freddy, and I do like the character, of course, and I'm a big fan of Yaphet Kotto. He's also in Live and Let Die, and yeah, he was great in that. Of course, the Bond film, but yes, seeing him here, at least you've got characters like this that are kind of warm in a sense, and are entertaining and nice to see on the screen. But again, there certainly was more potential here for some of these characters even, and I think, for example, Maggie should have been really, really a character that I got behind more, in the sense of her as a protagonist. And I think it's very interesting to see the kind of switching of different kind of switching the focus, in different areas of different characters throughout the film. But it works and it doesn't work for me. In the end, it's an okay film. It's very much, I like it. I don't love the film, but I'll take it. In that sense, it's a film that I get enjoyment from. I do overall enjoy this. There's not a single act that I really don't like. It's just a film at times where there's some things I don't like about it. I'm not too keen on in that sense, and I do praise this film. I think it's a warm film, charming film, nice to look at. It's got a good score. Brian May does the score to this, and yeah, it's a screenplay by Michael DeLuca. It's got some interesting ideas. This one, the execution here, and the way this film comes together is maybe a bit kind of messy, and could have been better. I feel personally, it's not fully realised. Film in this series for me personally, but this of course is a hated film overall, and I'm certainly on the positive side. I think it's an enjoyable film. I do enjoy a lot of the comedy. It's I admit that I do. I find a lot of this funny. The video game moments, of course, perhaps, and just some moments. With Freddy in general, they are funny at first. Sometimes it goes a bit too far immediately after, maybe a funny moment, and for example, some of the jokes are dragged to the point of, or dragged out, done to the point of just, is a bit restless perhaps, ever so slightly. But the final act is definitely the most, the one that has the most issues for me. There are definitely slights, particularly in the final act, because in the sense, it really goes all out in the final act. There's a lot going on here. There's more going on here on paper than 5 and 4. In the franchise, there are big moments here. I think, but and in that sense, due to the lack of control and just the actual the tone of the film, it doesn't quite work as well as it could have done. I feel, but I'll take it. I did enjoy this film. It's definitely a film that I enjoy. I can safely say that. I'm a film a fan of this franchise, and again, this is another film that I do like. I will say that. So yeah, do I like all seven? Find out on the next review. But that's a very different film anyway. But the original six films in this universe, the whole mythology of this, I like. I can say that now. I confirm that I do like all of these films, all of these six films in this franchise. So yeah, that's just me, of course, and I'm a big fan of this franchise, and this is not my favourite entry by any means, but I think it's definitely a film that I appreciate personally, and I do enjoy. I enjoy Freddy again, although he is not a scary character to me in this at all, really, and he isn't as much of a horror film this time round. It's definitely very, very comical, this one. I do think it goes too far at times in that sense, and also some of the darker moments, on paper, and some of the more intense, perhaps, and just significant moments, big moments, I think falls a bit short at times. On the other hand, it's always really, in every act, enjoyable to me, and I feel, it's a fine film. It's an okay film. The ending is not really a thing. It's not an ending that I'm a big fan of. Freddy's dead, and a whole kind of smile there. It's got decent credits. I like the credits. You see, of course, other films up until this point, we see like a montage, in a sense, to the rest of the films, in the series, and that's nice to see. But it just kind of reminds me of how much I like a lot of these films a lot more than this. But this is still part of the family in that sense. It's not a film that I dislike or anything like that. And I think yes, a lot of people do. A lot of people hate this film, and that's everyone has their own opinions. I'm just personally a fan of this. I do have I find some comfort in this. I like the kind of the locations at first as well, and the sets are not bad as well. Some impressive moments in this. The production once again, and the score once again. Although I do prefer the previous scores. The thing about this as well, it lacks the atmosphere. It lacks the kind of the depth as well at times to the previous films in the franchise. Even 5. The atmosphere to that, the darkness, the kind of bold ways in which they were doing things in that film, and just the music and the visuals, the lighting. This film, it feels very, very different. I do like my, I'm certainly a massive fan of. Well, I think actually the 80s is the best decade for horror, and I think there is a slight kind of difference here. It doesn't quite feel like a. Yes, in essence, a true film in the series. In its tone and style, there is something lacking. There is a kind of difference. There is a drop once again. I would definitely take the other films over this one in that sense. The atmosphere, the style. At times there could have been in this film more in the way of perhaps lighting, framing, perhaps, and just general things that could have been, I think, thought out a bit more. There are some things that kind of missed the mark a little bit. Having said that, I do enjoy this film, and certainly once again it's a film that I'm a fan of, personally. So yes, overall my rating for this film, for Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare, for the final essentially film in this franchise, this universe, of course, my final rating for this film is a 60%. So yes, a positive score. Of course, could be a surprise to many, but I think just personally, I do like this film. I defend it. I think it's it's a fine film. It's not horrendous. It's not a film that kind of is bad to me. There are often some things I don't like about the film. I've said that. I've said the tone at times, and just there is a lack of style at times, perhaps, and feeling. But the tone is definitely very inconsistent at times. But perhaps the two different tones here. The first half is more of a kind of campy, funny film with very different feeling. And the character working here is very different. The second half, or especially the final 25 minutes, is very, very, very different. We have more reveals. We have a lot of things going on here that is very, very serious in its tone. And then the very final moments, once again, it goes into the kind of all out, campiness. It's a very bizarre mix. I can see yes, I can understand. I can understand if some don't like this film. It's not a film for everyone. It's very different, of course. It doesn't really feel anything like, at times anyway, the other films in the series. Other times, it does in a way, and it has at least some of the elements that some of the other films do, the sequels, the charm, the heart, and the kind of cool, campy moments. I feel, I enjoy this film. I have a fine time of it. Yet again, it's not a film that I claim to be a horror masterpiece. It's not a film that I personally think is a great one. It's fine if you do, of course. Everyone will react differently to films. Again, I can see this is a very, very, unpopular film. But personally, for me, it's a film that I like. Well, there are things that are disappointing to me. I have every right to be disappointed, being a massive fan of this franchise, of course. And, just the first one specifically, definitely very, very different. We came very, very far in some interesting ways, throughout this series. It's been great to discuss these films, but just looking on how we've come, so such strange ways, perhaps from the first film, or even the first three. It kind of certainly changes after that. We have very, very outlandish moments. Freddy is much more of a, after the third entry, much more of a focused, of a comical character. He is played for laughs. The one-liners, the kind of the incarnations of Freddy. For example, in the fifth entry as well, Super Freddy. But in a sense, I do like these moments. Again, I'm a big fan. On occasion of campy horror films. I really like wacky films, and it's not it doesn't have to be a fully serious film. For a horror to work. It doesn't have to be on this occasion. And I do like it. But there are some things that don't quite work as well as they could have done. But yeah, we'll wrap up. I think the performances here, as I've said, I like some of them. Other performances, maybe not as much. Particular characters as well. I do like, Spencer. I like Tracy. And Maggie is an interesting character. I think it's a strange kind of shift, as I've said, to her being the protagonist a lot more in the second half. But having said that, it's interesting to see this film. Of course, there are wacky moments. I think the comedy works at times. I'll say that. I'll admit that. I personally feel that. But again, other times it goes way too far. For me, on this occasion, and of course also diminishes the actual emotional, perhaps resonance that the film is trying to, elicit maybe, in the final reveals, because it really is trying to kind of tie things together and give more of an exposition to Freddy, but you kind of have, as I've said, very, very wacky moments throughout most of the film until this. It's a real Freddy is kind of he's no longer this scary character. I think if it had kind of kept up this this feeling of this atmosphere, this subtlety to Freddy, and then it had gone in this route, or in the sense of if we had this occurrences in this film earlier on in the series, where it was in hands of hands of greatness, really, in my opinion, then it could have been a lot better. But I do think it's a film to praise. I defend this film personally, and I have a good time with this one. I think it's an okay film. I enjoy it. It's a fun film for me. I like the comedy. It makes me laugh, and also it's interesting to look at visually. And it's a fine film. Again, I don't love this film. I don't think it's a special film, but it is kind of it has some special feelings to me. I watched this as a kid, and I liked it when I watched it, and I have some good memories of just when films you watch as a kid or when you're younger, and you have particular memories of just visual moments, perhaps just the locations of a film, a sunny scene, perhaps. It's kind of nostalgic in your head, and you watch it again. It's just bringing back these memories. Not that factors into the me liking this film, but it's nice. It has some special feelings attached, in a sense. But as an overall picture, I don't think it's a great special film in that sense. But I like it. What do you think? It'd be very interesting to see if anyone likes this in the comments. And yeah, it'd be great to know what you think. Great if you do like it. That's great. If you don't, that's fine. As always, all opinions are welcomed. And sincere, respectful comments. Whatever you think of a film, it doesn't matter. It's just great to know, and it's always interesting to hear. And specifically on this series, we're now coming to an end. It's been great. It's been a pleasure to talk to those that have, discussed these films, and yeah, it's a great film or series, to kind of discuss whatever you think of them. However, kind of better or worse some films are, within the franchise. Every entry has a talking point in that sense, and they all kind of bring their own flavour. Yeah, it's great. It's great to talk about, and eventually, of course, next month I will be doing a ranking. So yeah, I'll see you for that if you're interested. And yeah, tell me your thoughts on this film. I like it. I like this film. I think it's an okay film. I am a big defender, of these films, and I'm a defender of this one. I think it's not a bad film in my opinion. There are definitely some things that I'm not big on, but overall as a piece, as a comedy, I guess, as a comedy horror, but mainly a comedy, kind of weird, wacky kind of film. Yeah, I do like it, and I think again it goes too far sometimes, but overall I'm a fan. A thumbs up from me, and yeah, it'd be great to know what you think of this film. Leave your thoughts if you want, of course, and I look forward to rewatching Wes Craven's New Nightmare. Very, very interesting experience I had with that as well. We'll talk about that as well. How I thought, what I thought about that film as a kid on the next review, and also what I think of it. When rewatching these films, going through them. So yes, as always, it's been great. It's been great to go through these films, and yes, I've really enjoyed this. Just at least, even just expressing my opinions on these films. What I think of them. So yeah, yes, indeed. We'll wrap up. As always, take care, and yes, thanks for watching.